When it comes to major purchases like buying a house or a car, or if you find yourself binging on many smaller purchases online, wasting money is one of the worst feelings. I bought this leather jacket in Romania. I don't like it. You know that feeling and you don't want to experience it again. But you will unless you know how to avoid it. So why did I buy it? You'll find out by the end of this video. More than 50% of people say they often or sometimes experience buyer's remorse. That's a lot of wasted money. And when you think about over a period of 10 years, 20 years, even 30 years, how much money you could save just by avoiding buying things you don't want anyway, you can begin to realize how much you can improve your life by redirecting that money to investing in things that would really make your life better. Before we do anything else, start by setting your intent. Set your intent on avoiding buyer's remorse by knowing that when you buy something, that it's either useful in a way that benefits you or that it's something that you will enjoy. From now on, you're going to buy what you know will bring you satisfaction. There are two components of buyer's remorse that you're already familiar with, and when I say them, you'll understand how this all fits together. But first, the first strategy is going meta. When you are buying compulsively, what's happening is what we call being overly associated. Another way of putting it is we're a little too present. We're so present and we're so in the moment that we're not thinking outside of the moment. Like we're not thinking into the future of when this, whatever it is that we're buying, might serve us in the future, which is probably not at all. And that's why we experience buyer's remorse. So when you're associated, that's when you're fully in your body. You're not thinking about anything else. You're fully in the present moment. Disassociation is when you have a sense of being outside of your body, especially being outside of your body and seeing yourself. So you can think about any memory that you've had. And when you think about that memory, do you drop in and fully relive the memory, seeing it through your own eyes, your sort of point of view? Or do you see yourself in the memory, almost like you're watching a movie of yourself? If you've ever seen someone while you're talking to them seem to not really be paying attention to what you're saying, their eyes kind of glaze over and they just kind of seem like they're thinking about something else or they're not there, rest assured they are not associated, they are disassociated. When you are doing something in a compulsive way, like a habit, that usually means you're very associated. So you're not able to access anything outside of this very present moment. Usually it's whenever you see an object and you feel compelled to get it, to purchase it. Many people who have eating disorders or have problems with overeating, they feel very compelled to eat, and the reason why is they're overly associated into the present moment when they're in the presence of food and they seem to not be able to stop themselves. But you can interrupt this by disassociating. We call that going meta, because what you're doing is you're stepping outside of yourself and you're saying, okay, how do I feel about myself in this situation? Or how do I feel about this situation that I'm in? It breaks that association, it breaks that compulsion, and you step outside of yourself and you see yourself. So if say you're on Amazon and you're getting ready to binge buy something, if you just take a moment to interrupt that, step outside of yourself, and it's almost as if you're like watching yourself on Amazon and you say, okay, how do I feel about this? It will interrupt that pattern so much, it will enable you to gather more information, especially about how you're feeling and how you're going to feel about that. And that's another way of going meta, is to ask yourself in the future, how do I think I'm going to feel about this in the future? This is a great way to break a habit or break a compulsion tomorrow, the day after, a week after, a month after. Am I still going to be happy that I bought this? So go meta to the situation and ask yourself, am I really going to be fulfilled by this purchase? If the answer is no, don't buy it. If the answer is I don't know, that means set it aside. Maybe you revisit it tomorrow. If the answer is yes and you're sure about that, chances are you're going to be very satisfied with that purchase. The two major components that I mentioned earlier that will cause you to experience buyer's remorse on a psychological level is cognitive dissonance and comparison. Cognitive dissonance is when we act out of alignment with our typical behaviors, our typical attitudes, and our typical beliefs, especially about ourselves. So when we buy something that does not align with what we want, who we think we are, or our attitude about that, as in spending way too much money for something that we don't even value, we experience a very negative feeling called cognitive dissonance. And there's a very good reason that we experience cognitive dissonance. It's not necessarily a bad thing. You feel that, that's an opportunity not to push it away but to understand what you did, understand how what you purchased did not align with your behavior, your beliefs, or your attitudes, your typical behaviors, your beliefs, or your attitudes. And that's a good opportunity to self-correct. Now, you can self-correct by going and asking for a refund and returning whatever it is that you got, but in some cases, maybe that's not possible. So the best thing that you can do is take note of this, and in the future, make that correction. Say to yourself, okay, I need to watch out for this, and envision yourself buying something that does align with who you are, your values, your beliefs, your attitude, and staying away from things that do not. So make that correction. The only way you can make that correction is to accept that you're experiencing that feeling. The good thing about accepting that feeling is it starts to go away. It's almost as if your mind or your neurology is telling you, don't do this again. And that's where that negative feeling comes from. It's almost like a reminder for you not to do it again. The only way that you can really take note of that is if you accept that feeling. We often get swept up in wanting things because other people want them. This phenomenon has been studied repeatedly, and so it is a very real thing and something you want to watch out for. When you buy something on Amazon, they don't come and tell you, you might want to buy this other thing. What do they always say? Other people who purchase this also purchase this other thing. We're more likely to buy something if a lot of other people are doing it, because we know that we will compare ourselves to other people. However, if we put a stop to that, if we know that that's a thing, and we know that we're susceptible to comparing ourselves to other people, and we're susceptible to buying things when we compare ourselves to other people and we see that they have something that we don't, you can put an end to this. So it's about awareness. It's about awareness of this psychological phenomenon of comparison and feeling the need to have what other people have. Being able to look at it and say, no, I don't need that thing. Just because someone else has it doesn't really affect my life at all. I either want it or I don't want it, and I want it or I don't want it regardless of whether or not other people have it. The second strategy is what we call a meta program. There's lots of meta programs, and meta programs in NLP are basically the direction in which you're focusing your attention. There's a meta program called locus of control. Locus of control is where you put your sense of authority. Where do you put your sense of control? Now, if you're learning something from, say, a master and you're an apprentice, chances are you give up your locus of control to the master. When I was being mentored by my mentor, I gave him the authority. And then later, whenever I was working through things, I would bring back the locus of control to myself, and I would ask myself, okay, does this really work? But I would give that up temporarily because I found that when I did that, I would learn much faster. When you are in a buying situation, lots of times if you're being pressured or if you're in really good rapport with someone, you are giving up your locus of control to that other person. And what you want to do is realize that and then say, okay, I'm taking back that locus of control. So it's a matter of where are you putting your attention? If you're putting your attention and giving that other person authority, then it's very likely you're going to do what they say, even if it's not in your best interest. So you want to take back your locus of control, put yourself back into authority, and you're putting your attention back within yourself and saying, okay, is this in my best interest? And only I know it's in my best interest. There's no way that a salesperson or a website can tell me what's best for me. And so you take back that locus of control. I think the most important strategy here is really knowing your values. And this is an ongoing practice that I recommend people do for their entire lives. I still do this. I've been doing it for about 10 years. It's one of the first things you learn in NLP is how to elicit your values. And when you just do it on a regular basis where you're eliciting values around purchases, but not eliciting your values to just purchases or potential purchases, think about every area of your life. What do you value? What is of utmost importance to you? You do a hierarchy of values in a particular context because it's going to be different from context to context. And just understand what's really important to you. How are you going to fulfill that? What experiences are important to you? What experiences do you find fulfilling? And what do you need to do in order to fulfill those? It's going to make it a lot easier for you to make really good choices, really good decisions. When your behavior aligns with your values, you actually experience self-esteem and you experience confidence. When your behavior doesn't align with your values, that negative feeling that you feel is what we call cognitive dissonance. The more you understand your values, the more clear you are about your values, especially in every area of your life. And every time you go to buy something, especially major purchases, if you take the time to really understand what your values are, you're much more likely to get them fulfilled and avoid buyer's remorse. So why did I buy this leather jacket if I don't even like it? I wanted a new leather jacket. And most things in Romania, where my wife is from and where I have a second home, most things there are much less expensive than they are in the United States. Certainly much, much less expensive than California. I got caught up in the fervor of, I gotta get a good deal. And when I leave Romania, I'm not going to be able to have the opportunity to get this good deal. So there was a sense of urgency, and there was this idea that I was going to cheat the system, so to speak, and get something way underpriced. I ended up buying the nicest jacket in the store compared to all of the other jackets. And because I did that, it ended up being almost as expensive as a leather jacket that I would buy here, one that I would like much, much better than this one. But as soon as I took it out of the store, it didn't look like the nicest jacket anymore. And so I did experience buyer's remorse, and I only wore the jacket a couple of times. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I didn't just make this video to give you useful strategies to avoid buyer's remorse and save money. I did do it for that reason, and it's not the only reason. Many of you will watch a lot of my videos, especially if you're interested in NLP, Neuro Linguistic Programming. And some of you will move on to enrolling in my group coaching program or my coaching certification program, or maybe you just want to do one-on-one coaching with me, which is great. What I don't want is for you to sign up for one of my programs and not follow through with it. If you follow these 3 strategies I've given you, and enrolling in one of my programs makes sense to you, you'll know for sure that you will get the value you want, and you will be happy and satisfied, which really makes me happy too. So if you're interested in any of these programs that I've mentioned, you can learn more about them in the description below this video. And if you're unsure of how to elicit your values, you want to watch this video right here, which will show you everything you need to know.